She'd never even been kissed. Not once. Not in high school, not at college parties, not even in the dim corners of coffee shops where guys flirted but always walked away. Sofia Ramirez had always been the quiet one, the girl with thick glasses, oversized hoodies, and a mind buried in her books. At 23, she was still a virgin, not because she was religious or conservative, but because love had never looked real to her. It always seemed like a scam, some emotional manipulation where someone ended up used or broken. So when she got the offer, it didn't feel real at all. She'd been living in a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn, barely making rent from her 2 jobs, waitressing during the day, freelancing copywriting at night. Her mom was sick back home in Florida, and Sofia had just found out the insurance wouldn't cover the surgery she needed. She was desperate, tired, drowning, and then came him, Landon Pierce, CEO of Veritas Corp., a global tech empire with ties in everything from AI to pharmaceuticals. 34, obscenely rich, rumored to be both brilliant and cold, the kind of man who could buy your life and walk away like it meant nothing. He didn't approach her himself. Of course not. It was a woman, elegant, sharp, and terrifyingly polite, who found her at the cafe one rainy Tuesday afternoon. She slid a business card across the table and said in a voice too calm to be real, "Mr. Pierce would like to make you an offer." Sofia laughed. Thought it was a scam, but she kept the card. The next day, curiosity pushed her to dial the number. A meeting was arranged. 2 men in suits picked her up in a black car and drove her to a skyscraper in Manhattan that looked like it belonged in a Marvel movie. That's where she met him. He didn't smile. Didn't even pretend to flirt. Just looked her dead in the eye and said, "I need a contract girlfriend. Public appearances, dinners, photos, for exactly 6 months. No sex, no touching unless the cameras are on. You'll be paid $50 million, in full." Sofia stared. $50 million? He continued like it was nothing. "I've got investors who want to see stability. A committed man. Someone who's not chasing models or escorts. They need to trust I'm focused. You, Miss Ramirez, are the perfect image. Smart, modest, innocent." Innocent. That word tasted bitter in her mouth. She should have walked out, called him crazy. But instead she whispered, "Why me?" Landon leaned forward, his icy gray eyes locking on hers. "Because you don't want to be loved. You want to survive. That makes you dependable." And just like that, the offer wasn't a fantasy anymore. It was survival. For her mother. For everything she'd ever tried to hold together with duct tape and prayers, she signed the NDA that night. By the weekend, her hair was styled by celebrity artists, her wardrobe replaced with designer gowns, and her face, once ignored in grocery lines, was splashed on tabloids with headlines like, "Mysterious Latina Beauty Wins Billionaire's Heart." No one knew the truth. She wasn't his love, she was his contract, and she was starting to feel the weight of a price tag that expensive. The first event was a gala. Sofia had never been to anything like it before. Crystal chandeliers taller than her apartment, tables covered in gold-trimmed linens, and guests whose names sounded like they belonged on company buildings or luxury perfume bottles. Every woman there looked like she'd stepped out of a runway, and every man held a glass of champagne like it was a trophy. She wore a black silk gown that hugged her curves in ways she wasn't used to, paired with diamond earrings she was too afraid to touch. Her makeup was done by someone who'd worked with actresses she'd only seen on Netflix, and when she looked at herself in the mirror, she didn't recognize the girl staring back. She looked like she belonged, but inside, she was still just Sofia, nervous, uncertain, and silently screaming. Landon showed up 20 minutes late on purpose. His entrance was calculated, just like everything else about him. When he walked in, every head turned. He was tall, effortlessly handsome in a suit tailored so well it looked like it had been stitched onto him, and cold. God, he was cold. Not rude, not mean, but detached. as if nothing in the room could truly touch him. Except her. At least that's what he needed everyone to think. He walked straight to her, didn't say a word, just slipped his hand around her waist and kissed her cheek like they were deep into year 2 of a private, perfect romance. The cameras clicked instantly, dozens of them, flashing lights, fake smiles, lies layered over lies. She forced a laugh, played along, pretended he was hers. Smile wider, he murmured through clenched teeth, lips barely moving. You look like you're being held hostage. I feel like I am, she whispered back, her smile brightening just enough for the cameras. He chuckled, fake and flawless, and kissed the top of her head. You're doing fine. Just don't screw this up. They mingled, shook hands, answered fake questions about how they met, what they loved about each other, and whether a wedding was in the future. Sophia nearly choked on her drink when Landon said, "Sooner than people think." The crowd melted. She wanted to throw her glass at his smug face. By the end of the night, she was exhausted. Every laugh had been a lie, every moment a performance. She'd memorized a fake story about their first date, how he'd spilled coffee on her manuscript at a bookstore, and repeated it more than 5 times like a broken doll. When the car door finally shut behind them and the driver pulled off, Sophia let her head fall back against the leather seat. I hate you. You're supposed to. Then why did you pick me? She asked, eyes still shut. Landon's voice was quiet. Because I can trust someone who's got nothing to lose. That shut her up. She looked out the window, watching New York blur past. She thought of her mom lying in a hospital bed, the bills stacking up, the surgery that couldn't wait much longer. I want half up front, she said. I've held up my part. The gala, the photos, the lie. He didn't hesitate. You'll have it tomorrow. You better not be lying. Landon turned his head, those cold gray eyes landing on her again. You think I built an empire by lying to the wrong people? No, she said quietly. But you're still a bastard. He smirked. Good. Keep saying that. It'll help when you realize just how deep you've gotten into this. She didn't understand what he meant. Not yet. But by the end of the next week, she would, because this wasn't just about pretending to be someone's girlfriend. This was about power and secrets and the cost of being bought. The money hit her account the next morning. $25 million, just like that. One minute she was heating up cheap oatmeal, the next she was staring at numbers on a screen that didn't even look real. For a few seconds she forgot to breathe. Her fingers trembled as she logged out of the app and pressed the phone to her chest, like it might disappear. Her mom. The surgery. Everything could finally be taken care of, but the relief didn't last long, because once you've been paid, you're owned. Her phone lit up with a message from Landon's assistant. Your presence is required at the Hamptons estate. 3-day weekend. Pack formal wear. A stylist will be at your apartment in 2 hours. Sophia wanted to scream. She hadn't even unpacked from the gala. Her mind was still spinning from the fake smiles, the interviews, the lies. But this was what she'd signed up for. She was on the Billionaire's clock now. By noon, she was being driven to a private helipad. By 1, she was in the sky. And by 2, she stood in front of a mansion so massive it looked like it belonged to a royal family. The estate was surrounded by high-tech security, gates taller than anything she'd ever seen, and silence so thick it made her skin crawl. Landon was already there. He didn't greet her, just nodded when she stepped into the marble-floored foyer, then handed her a folder. What's this? Your role for the weekend, he said without looking at her. We're hosting several major partners. They expect to meet the woman I plan to marry. Wait, marry? Relax, it's not happening. But the suggestion will be there. They'll ask questions. Smile, charm, speak when I need you to. Keep your answers within the script. Sophia flipped through the folder, pages of fake memories, romantic vacations that never happened, cute stories about how they fell in love at an art gallery. Everything was fabricated, it was disgusting, and somehow it was working. I can't keep all this straight? You'll manage. You're smart. That's why you're here. The weekend was a blur of luxury and lies. Private dinners with billionaires who laughed too loud. Conversations about global markets and acquisitions. She didn't understand. Landon never left her side, his hand always on her lower back, his lips brushing her ear whenever he needed her to say something sweet. And she played the role perfectly. Everyone believed the act. Some of them even looked jealous. But behind, every smile was a storm building. It started Saturday night. She was on the balcony alone, trying to breathe, when one of the investors approached her. He was older, maybe in his 60s, slick gray hair, expensive cologne, and eyes that looked like they belonged to a snake. "You're a smart girl," he said, sipping his scotch. "But let me guess. This thing with Landon, it's not real." "Is it?" Sophia froze. "Excuse me?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You think we haven't seen this before? The pretty face, the desperate background, the NDA, the sudden romance out of nowhere?" She stared at him, blood running, cold. "Don't worry," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I'm not judging. We all play the game. But just remember, contracts expire, and when they do, girls like you disappear." He walked away, just like that, leaving behind a chill she couldn't shake. Later that night, when Landon kissed her in front of a dozen people, she felt nothing. No spark, no safety, just emptiness. Back in her room, she locked the door, sat on the bed, and stared at her reflection. What had she become? She had money now. Enough to save her mother, enough to start over. But the cost wasn't just her time or her image, it was her, and something told her. This was only the beginning. She didn't sleep that night. Every time Sophia closed her eyes, she saw the old investor's face, his words echoing like a threat. Contracts expire. Girls like you disappear. What did he mean? Was it just a warning? Or something darker? By sunrise, she'd decided to ask Landon. She had earned that much. She had played her part, said all the right things, smiled through the suffocation. She had earned answers, but Landon wasn't alone. She found him near the pool, dressed in a crisp white shirt, his sleeves rolled up, sipping espresso while talking to a woman so flawless it made Sophia instantly self-conscious. The woman was laughing, softly, her hand casually brushing Landon's arm like it had been there 100 times before. Sophia felt something twist in her chest. She didn't care, right? This was fake. A transaction. A performance. She had no right to feel anything. But feelings aren't logical. They show up uninvited and punch you in the gut before you can shut the door. Landon noticed her standing there. "Sophia," he said, voice flat. "This is Madeline Rowe, CFO of our Asian operations." Madeline gave a knowing smile. "So nice to finally meet the mystery woman. We've all been dying to know what kind of magic spell you put on Mr. Iceheart." Sophia forced a smile. "Just lucky, I guess," Landon cut in. "We'll be leaving in 20. Pack your things." "What? I thought we were staying until Monday." "Plans changed." Back in the car, Sophia waited until the driver rolled up the partition. "Who was she?" Landon looked out the window. "None of your concern." "She seemed close." "She's not." "You're lying." He turned, eyes sharp. "Now, and you're forgetting the terms of our agreement." "No," she snapped. "I remember every line of that damn contract, and I also remember you saying I could ask questions, so I'm asking one now." Silence. Just the hum of the tires on the road. Finally, he said, "Madeline and I had a thing. Years ago. It ended." "But not really," Sophia muttered, then regretted it instantly. Landon's voice dropped lower. Careful. She looked out the window, biting her lip to keep from saying something she couldn't take back. Because the truth was, she was jealous. Not because she loved him, but because she'd started to depend on him. That was the trap. He made her feel like she belonged to something bigger, even if it was fake. Back in Manhattan, things got stranger. The press had exploded with news about their romance. There were whispers of engagement, wedding predictions, even a feature. In People magazine was in the works. Sophia's inbox flooded with interview requests, designer brands offering her sponsorships, and influencers begging to collaborate. She should have felt powerful, but instead, she felt cornered, trapped, and then the folder came. It was slipped under her apartment door late at night. No note, no name, just a sleek black folder tied with a thin white ribbon. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Landon, in a parking garage, exchanging something with a man whose face was blurred. Another photo, a briefcase full of what looked like hard drives, a handshake, money. Another, a hospital, a woman hooked up to machines, a doctor. Landon again, standing in the corner, watching. Her heart started pounding. Who was the woman? What was in that briefcase? Why had someone sent this to her? And then she saw it, the final photo. It was her, sitting at the gala, smiling beside Landon, and on the back, scribbled in pen, "You think you're the first girl he's paid to play pretend?" Sophia dropped the folder, her hands shaking. Everything suddenly felt colder. He had lied, not just to the world, but to her. She didn't go to his penthouse the next day. She was supposed to. Another event. Another photo op. But she didn't show up. She didn't text. She didn't call. She sat in her apartment with the folder on her lap, flipping through the photos over and over again like they might change if she stared long enough. Had used other women. Maybe even the same way he was using her. And this mystery woman in the hospital? Something about her looked off. Sophia couldn't place it. Maybe it was the sadness on Landon's face in that picture, or the way he stood like he was guarding her. She needed answers, but she wasn't going to play nice to get them. Landon didn't call until after midnight. "You're not at the venue," he said, voice calm but edged with steel. "No shit. You had a responsibility. You had a past that you never told me about." Silence, just his shallow breathing through the phone. "I found something," she said, not bothering to hide the venom in her voice. "Photos of you, doing things that don't look very CEO-like, meeting someone in a garage, visiting a woman in a hospital. What the hell are you hiding?" His voice dropped. Dangerous now. "Where did you get those?" "Someone left them at my door." "Sophia, listen to me carefully." "No, you listen," she snapped. "I've kept my mouth shut. I've smiled and played your perfect little girlfriend. I've sold the lie so well even I started to believe it, but I'm not a puppet. You either tell me what's going on, or I walk, and I swear to God, I'll take this whole circus down with me." Another pause. Longer this time. Then finally, he said, "Come to my office." Now. She didn't trust him, but she went. The city was quiet when she arrived, those weird hours between night and morning where everything felt like it was holding its breath. His office was on the top floor of a building that screamed wealth, and for the first time, the security guard didn't smile at her, didn't even acknowledge her. Landon was already there, sleeves rolled up, tie undone, standing in front of a wall of monitors. He looked like he hadn't slept either. He didn't offer her a drink. Didn't tell her to sit. Instead, he pulled up one of the images from the folder, the one with the hospital. "That woman," he said quietly, "is my sister." Sophia blinked. "What?" "She was in a car accident 3 years ago. Coma. Permanent. Brain damage. The doctors say she's gone. But I visit her anyway." "And the man in the garage?" "A hacker. He used to work for one of my companies. He stole a prototype of something we weren't supposed to be developing. What kind of prototype? Landon looked her dead in the eyes. Neural memory transfer. The ability to take thoughts, data, from one person's brain and upload it into another's. Sophia took a step back. That's sci-fi. That's not real. It's very real and very illegal. We weren't supposed to be testing it yet, but I was desperate. I wanted to bring her back. Sophia swallowed hard. So you were trying to transfer your memories into her? No, he said slowly. I was trying to download hers, in case we lost her completely. She stared at him, unable to find words. I didn't tell you because it's dangerous. Because if this gets out, everything crashes. Me, my company, the investors, the future we've been selling, and now someone knows you're close to me. That's why they sent you that folder. They want to use you to get to me. Sophia shook her head. Why me? I'm nobody. You're not nobody. You're the one person they think I care about. The room went still. The words hung between them, sharp and confusing. He looked away first. You need to decide, Sophia. Either get in the car now and leave all of this behind, vanish with your money, or stay. But if you stay, there's no going back. This stops being fake the moment you step out of that door with me. She didn't speak, because for the first time, she didn't know what she wanted. She didn't sleep. Again. She sat in her apartment. The city buzzing low outside her windows, the folder still on her kitchen counter like a curse she couldn't burn. Everything in her head was spinning. Memory transfers, illegal tech, a sister in a coma, enemies watching her like a pawn on a chessboard, and Landon telling her she wasn't nobody, that she was the one they'd use against him. Her chest felt tight. Every time she remembered his voice saying that, calm, controlled. But there was something underneath it, something cracked and raw, like the truth was starting to bleed through his polished mask. By morning, she had made her choice. She showed up at his penthouse, no warning. The guard buzzed her up without question this time, and when the elevator opened into his massive living room, Landon was already standing there, like he'd been waiting. I'm staying, she said. He didn't smile. He didn't even blink, but he gave the faintest nod. Then we protect you differently now. That was the day everything changed. No more pretending. She got a new phone, new security details, a private driver who never spoke and never smiled. A quiet man named Vincent moved into the unit across from hers. Her shadow, as Landon called him, in case anything happened. Sophia wasn't a girlfriend anymore. She was a target, and with that came a different kind of intimacy. Not the soft, romantic kind, but proximity, tension, real conversations, not ones fed by a script. He started telling her things, pieces of his past, how he'd started with nothing, how his father was a drunk who disappeared when Landon was 10, how his mother died from an overdose 2 years later, how he built everything out of spite, every dollar, every deal, every cold decision made to prove he was more than the broken kid he used to be. And she listened, not because she had to, but because for the first time, she wanted to. But the world outside didn't stop spinning. And not everyone was happy about the billionaire's little girlfriend becoming something more. The first threat came in the form of a text, blocked number, just one sentence. You're not the first. You won't be the last. Run, Sophia showed. Landon immediately, he didn't flinch, just forwarded it to Vincent and told her to pack a bag. We're going to Dubai. There's a summit I need to attend. You'll be safer overseas for a while. But no arguments. If they're watching you, they're too close. Within 12 hours, she was on a private jet. Everything moved fast with Landon. Decisions made like lightning. Plans executed. With military precision. She was beginning to understand how someone like him controlled empires. The flight was quiet, just the two of them, thousands of feet above the world. He was seated across from her, reading something on a tablet, but every few minutes he'd glance at her, like he was checking, like he needed proof she was still here. Sophia finally broke the silence. "You ever regret it?" He looked up. "What?" "All of it. The empire, the money, the power, the pretending." Landon studied her. Then, slowly, he said, "No one ever really wants the truth. They just want a version of it that doesn't hurt." She frowned. "That's not an answer." Set the tablet down, leaned forward. "I regret her being in that car. I regret trusting the wrong people. I regret dragging you into this. But I don't regret building what I built. I don't regret surviving." A pause, then softer. "And I don't regret you." Sophia felt her throat tighten, because for a man who never showed emotion, that meant everything. But it also scared her, because when someone like Landon does care, the fallout is never small, and she had a feeling that care was about to be tested, harder than either of them could imagine. Dubai was heat and gold and silence. The summit was held at a private compound just outside the city, where CEOs, tech moguls, and shadowy investors mingled, behind bulletproof glass and heavy contracts. Security was tighter than a military base. Guards at every corner, drones scanning the skies, walls so white and sterile they felt like a hospital. Landon had business meetings from morning till night. Sophia wasn't invited into most of them, but she didn't care. She watched him from afar, dressed in sleek suits, shaking hands with men who smiled with their teeth but not their eyes. This was his element, ruthless, powerful, untouchable. But even surrounded by wealth, she felt something shifting. Landon was becoming more careful. He checked on her constantly, made Vincent shadow her every move. She wasn't just decoration anymore. She was leverage, a liability, maybe even something more. But danger has a smell. And by day 2, it was everywhere. It started small, an encrypted message on her private tablet. "He's not who you think he is. You still have time. Check room 908. She stared at it for 10 minutes. Vincent was outside the suite, probably watching everything. She debated telling Landon, but something in her gut told her not to. So she lied. Said she was going to the rooftop garden for air. Vincent followed her halfway, then peeled off to deal with a security check. It was the only moment she had. She took the service elevator, heart pounding in her ears, and hit the button for the 9th floor. Room 908 was at the far end of the hall, unmarked. No name, no security, just a black door and silence. She knocked once, no answer. Then the door creaked open. She stepped inside slowly. The room was empty except for a laptop sitting on the desk, already open. A video file was paused at the start. The name of the file made her blood go cold. Operation Sophia. She hit play. The screen flickered, and Landon's voice filled the room. Not the one she knew. Not cold, not distant, but calculated, icy, flat. "We use her for 6 months. By then, the press will have shifted attention away from Veritas's internal trials, and our foreign partners will have no grounds to terminate investments. Once that's stabilized, she disappears quietly." Another voice. "And the payout?" Landon again. "She gets what she signed for. 50 million. Nothing more. We bury the rest." The video cut off. Sophia's knees buckled. Everything was a lie. Not just the relationship, not just the press, but her entire role. She hadn't been chosen because she was smart, or because she didn't want love. She'd been chosen because she was disposable. She didn't remember how she got back to the suite. Her hands were trembling, her skin ice cold despite the desert heat. Vincent was waiting outside the door, but didn't say a word as she walked in, her face pale and unreadable. Landon was already inside at the bar, pouring himself a drink. "You okay?" he asked, back still turned. Sophia looked at him, really looked, at the man who held her hand in public, kissed her forehead for the cameras, promised her safety, made her believe he cared, and suddenly she hated him. She walked over slowly, calmly. He turned toward her, and before he could speak, she slapped him so hard the glass flew out of his hand and shattered on the floor. "What the hell? You lied to me," she hissed. His face hardened. "What did you see?" "Everything," she snapped, tears stinging her eyes. "You planned this. You never gave a damn about me. I was just your PR shield while you covered up something illegal." "Sophia, no, don't talk to me like you care. You used me. You paid me to play the good little girlfriend, then planned to throw me away like garbage." The silence was unbearable. He didn't deny it. He didn't try to spin it. He just looked at her with something like regret and maybe guilt, but no defense. "I protected you," he said quietly. "I gave you everything." "You bought me," she spat. "That's not love. That's ownership." Landon looked down. "I was trying to fix something bigger than us. You destroyed me in the process." And with that, she walked out. No guards could stop her. No cameras followed. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't acting. She was just a girl, heartbroken, furious, and finally free. But what she didn't know yet was that walking away wouldn't end things, because Landon Pierce never let go of anything, and she was about to find out just how far he'd go to keep what he thought he owned. She ran, not in the dramatic, movie scene kind of way, but in silence, quiet, controlled, like a ghost. She booked a separate flight back to New York, under a fake name, left behind the glamour, the guards, the penthouse lifestyle like it was some fever dream, back to a worn hoodie, a backpack, and the parts of herself she hadn't sold. No one stopped her, no one tried to stop her, and that was what scared her the most. Landon let her go. For now. Back in Brooklyn, the apartment felt smaller. The old radiator still hissed. The walls still echoed loneliness. But at least it was real. She didn't have stylists knocking on her door, no security shadowing her steps, no cold billionaire watching her like she was a chess piece he could move at will. She kept waiting for the hit, for the phone call, the threat, the lawyer. Something. But it didn't come. 3 days passed, then 4. Then one morning, a brown envelope slid under her door. No name, no stamp. Inside was a flash drive. Sophia didn't want to touch it. Her hands shook just holding it. But curiosity, that sick, haunting thing, got the better of her. She plugged it into her laptop, one file, Project Eve, final stage footage. The video opened with security cam footage from a hospital. Her breath caught. It was Landon's sister. Only this time she wasn't unconscious. She was sitting up, eyes open, blank, hooked to wires, surrounded by scientists. And then a voice, robotic, distorted, came from her mouth. "I am not her." Sophia leaned closer, horrified. Landon's voice came next, from off camera. "How much of her memory did you retain?" 87% of speech, 55% of facial recognition, motor function increasing daily. Emotional patterns? Minimal. Then came the worst part. "Are you aware you are not alive?" The woman, his sister or whatever she was now, paused, then nodded. "I am aware I am a simulation." Sophia slapped the laptop shut, bile rising in her throat. She had been a distraction, a pretty, innocent face to buy Landon time, while behind the scenes he had finished building something the world wasn't ready for. Not AI, not memory transfer, reconstruction. Synthetic resurrection. He hadn't just lied. He had played God, and now she had proof. She could go to the press, the authorities, end him. But as she stood in her kitchen, staring at the flash drive like it was ticking, Her phone buzzed. Blocked. #1 message. If you expose this, they won't come for me. They'll come for you. You know too much. Sophia froze. She realized it then. He had let her go, because now she wasn't a liability, she was a threat, a witness, collateral. And in Landon Pierce's world, loose ends never stayed loose for long. 3 weeks later, she was gone. No more Sophia Ramirez. Her apartment was cleared, her accounts drained. Some said she'd fled the country. Others whispered that Landon paid her off, again, only this time to disappear for good. A few even claimed she was dead, but none of it was confirmed. And Landon? He smiled in every interview, held hands with new faces, launched a new company promising a revolution in neural health. No one asked about Sophia. No one dared. But in the darkest corners of the internet, buried in forums and leaked messages, there was one final upload, a video, short, blurry, a woman's voice, hollow, flat. If you're seeing this, I didn't disappear. I was erased. This is what happens when you take a billionaire's money and think you can walk away clean. Then static, then nothing. And Landon Pierce remained exactly where he liked to be, untouched and in control.